I had wanted to film this yesterday or in the afternoon, right after I got home, but funny story, it was so hot that my phone overheated. Yay! Thank you, Northeastern weather, and thank you all the previous generations for not taking care of the planet. Yay, he says while using an iPhone, which is also devastating to the planet. Technically, it's a smartphone. Shut up. Move on. Anyway. Yesterday, first thing I'd like to point out is I don't usually do these videos, but I figured, I'd do the best I could with this one. This won't be hopefully it won't be as much like the, all my uhs and ums and duh, all the brain dead stuff. Hopefully it's not like that, because I did have a day to rehearse at least, thankfully. So I appreciate my phone crapping out on me. Yesterday, I saw The Lion King in theaters. The 2019 Lion King, let me be specific. There's no theater near me shooting the 1994 one. Showing, not shooting, but either way. And I got a lot to say about it. And that's the weird part. Like, I'll get into that later. But let's set the record straight. Tim Burton's Alice in Wonderland was a beautifully awful mess. Maleficent was a very, very, very bad film. And I don't mean that in terms of like, oh, it's like The Phantom Menace, where it's just like a mosaic of beauty and stupidity and all that. Sorry, I literally just got home from work, so I'm a little worn out, and it's still like 8 billion degrees out. That's why I'm in my Captain America tank top. You can't touch this. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Either way. Maleficent was relentless garbage. Cinderella, 2015, was very passable, if you will. Like, it was... It was the most tolerable of these remakes, because it did do some things different. It wasn't necessarily a good film, but it did do some things a little different. Jungle Book, I've split with people on. I really don't like the Jungle Book, and that's because it's got really big tone problems, like Hunchback of Notre Dame levels of tone problems. Like, it ranges from having, it's Bill Murray as Baloo and Christopher Walken as King Louie. It's got the funny elements about it, but then it tries to do the serious and epic moments, like with Mowgli getting caught in a buffalo stampede. Gee, I wonder what Jon Favreau was trying to say he wanted to direct next. We'll get to that later. Jungle Book, garbage. It had very big tone problems. The only parts I liked about it were Ben Kingsley as Bagheera and Idris Elba as Shere Khan. Please note that those are the best ways I'm going to say those names, because there are a few names in Lion King that I'm just not even going to attempt to say when we get to that. But moving on, because we got to talk about the big guns. I'm talking the ones that made me almost give up on humanity. Those ones being Beauty and the Beast and Aladdin. Beauty and the Beast. It hurts to think about Beauty and the Beast. That's how much I hated that film. But everyone said so much about how awful it is. I mean, the auto-tuning with Emma Watson, it's so terrible that you hire Audrey McDonald, arguably one of the most beautiful voices to ever grace Broadway, to be in your movie, and you put her as the wardrobe. You didn't even put her in as Mrs. Potts. You put her in as the wardrobe. That, you get the Gaston subplot and all that with him wanting to marry Belle and him trying to give Maurice the benefit of the doubt, and then all of a sudden, oh, he's insane! Put him in an insane asylum! And all that. But, of course, the dumbest part of that movie was the Book of Teleportation, which was, without a doubt, the single dumbest thing that has ever been put into a movie. And yes, that includes midi-chlorians and... Oh, I don't even want to talk about it. I'm not going to talk about Dumbo because that one I didn't even finish. I watched up to the part when Dumbo and his mother got separated, and I said, yeah, this isn't grabbing me. Like, it's not even like where it's like, I'm gonna sit here and watch it because of how bad it was. I'm just sitting, I'm like, yeah, this isn't grabbing me at all. That you're trying, you gave Dumbo to Tim Burton. That's like giving a Care Bears movie to Stanley Kubrick or something. You don't do that. But we're not going to talk that much about Dumbo because I need to get to Aladdin, which might be a contender for one of the worst things ever made by a human. I will stand by my statement that it's still Attack of the Clones, but Aladdin gives this one a run for its money. Now, this isn't the fault of I'm going to say it is the fault of Guy Ritchie, so I'm not going to absolve him of any guilt. It's not the fault of Will Smith. Look, let's be fair. Will Smith was put in this role specifically to fail. There was no way he was going to compete or do better than Robin Williams did. Period. Like, that was never going to happen. It's like with they're talking about the remake of Hercules. Look, Jeff Goldblum is Jeff Goldblum, and he's a treasure to the world, but he's not going to beat James Woods as Hades. Especially with James Woods is still alive and is probably going to be like, hey, I can be Hades, I don't care. Sure, James Woods is a psychopath these days, but regardless. But it wasn't the fault of James Woods. It wasn't the fault of Will Smith for this film. It was the fault of them picking a actor to play Jafar who was more handsome than the skeevy-looking guy they picked to play Aladdin. It was Naomi Scott who had moments where she was better than Linda Larkin as Jasmine, and then there were other moments where she just like crapped herself on screen. It was like hard to watch. Gilbert Gottfried's still alive, guys. You could have gotten him to play Iago. I mean, if you're going to put James Earl Jones in as Mufasa, you can at least give us Iago. Yes? Maybe? No? Whatever. The fact that Jafar wants to go to war against the country that Jasmine's mother came from. Why? What do you gain from it? Does Agrabah have a good military? Does Jafar, he doesn't like them? Or what do you gain? The only bit of backstory we get in that film is that Jafar was a thief who worked his way up to be the Grand Vizier. Fine, good for Jafar, good for him, yeah. But why do you hate Jasmine's mother's country? Why do you want... Well, the lamp, that's obvious. He's the same reason Jafar wanted the lamp in the original for ultimate power, but... Why? Why are we going to war with this country? Why do you insist on it? You want them to be oh, well, we want to be a strong country. Okay. Why are you going to war then? Does Agrabah have a strong military? Does this country have a strong military? When you're talking about going to war, it's a pretty serious offense. You can't just be oh, you want to go to war with them and hold the snake staff there and be you want to go to war. And the Sultan will be oh, I want to go to war. I don't know why I gave him a Russian accent there, but whatever. So much. I want to talk about that movie to the day I die, but no point in that because we need to talk about Lion King. Okay, before I get into before I get into the technical, I will give a very broad statement about this film. It is so passable in terms of its execution, in terms of its construction, competency. It is so passable that it might be the worst of these films. And that before you jump in and be like, oh, he's gonna bash the living crap out of this movie. Hear me out for a minute. What is good about Beauty and the Beast and Aladdin? And I mean the remakes. It's that they're so awful that you're gonna remember them just because of how awful they were. Maleficent, the same thing. Alice in Wonderland, the same thing. Jungle Book, the same thing. Cinderella and Lion King have the only thing that we're going to remember about them is that they were the most competent, but at the same time the most incompetent, because they're not even bad enough to warrant hatred. This isn't bad enough to warrant hatred. And look, you're not talking to a guy who just casually watches Lion King. You guys know I worship the ground Lion King walks on. In fact, whatever. You can stay there. I got Boss Scar here. Yes, he's an Angels fan. Deal with it. Look at that. Look at that swag he got. Look at his swag that Scar's got. Yeah, he ain't got any swag in the remake. Okay, Scar, you can just stay right there. Okay. If I can sum this movie up in 3 scenes, it would be these 3 scenes, the following 3 scenes I'm going to tell you. First, it was a shot-for-shot remake of Circle of Life. Like, shot for shot, like, not even funny. Like, from the sun rising, to all the animals looking at the sun, to Zazu flying in right to Mufasa, to the sun coming down when Rafiki's holding Simba up for the sun and all the Circle of Life stuff. I will grant that the woman they got to sing Circle of Life is very good, but they did reuse the Lebo M chants from 1994. That's unforgivable. But that's not the scene I'm talking about. Okay. There are 3 scenes in this movie that basically sum up the pointlessness of this film. And immediately after the Circle of Life sequence, in the original movie, what happens? You have the little mouse that comes out of the cave, and then out of nowhere, bam! Scar's paw print comes down and catches it. And you're like, whoa, okay. In this, they let the mouse just run around the Pride Lands. Like, just, I'm a little mouse, I'm a little mouse, I want to run around here, woo, woo, woo. And then, out of nowhere, Scar just comes out of the shadows, and he begins his monologue, and then he catches the mouse, and then that's it. But for a solid minute, all you have is a night, albeit a beautifully composed Hans Zimmer score, with a mouse. Like we just jumped into a different movie. That's fine. That's fine. That's fine. Okay. Second scene I need to talk about. During the stampede, and in case you didn't know, if you've never seen this film, first off, shame on you. I don't mean the 2019 one. No. Do, for the love of God, do not go to the 2019 one. You don't have to. That's why I went to go see it. But anyway, I mean the 1994 one. If you haven't seen that yet, shame on you. Either way. During the stampede, Mufasa, Scar, and Zazu show up at the gorge, and you see Simba clinging to the tree with the wildebeest going after him. It doesn't have the speed of the first film, but again, I'll get into that later. That's not what I want to talk about. What I want to talk about is, in the 94 film, a wildebeest crashes into the tree, Simba starts, like, screaming because he's afraid, and Mufasa literally dives into the gorge, lands on a cliff, like, maybe, 100 meters below, like, maybe, 20 or 30 meters, not 100, I'm pretty sure it's death, but lands, several below, and he's basically in the gorge in seconds. This Mufasa, he's like trotting down the gorge. He's like, I'm gonna climb down. not leap. Not like his son is in any mortal danger or anything. He's just gonna go, climb down, I'm climbing. And then he stops on a ledge right in front of the stampede. And he's just sitting there. Now you can say, oh, well, he's just sitting there and waiting for his opportune moment to strike. I'm like, that's your son. The heir to the throne. He made a big point of when Simba went to the elephant graveyard that if him and Nala had been killed by the hyenas, the pride was done. You're giving the reins to Scar at that point, and you're dead at that point. But Mufasa's just sitting there, and he's like, take my time. It was almost like he wanted Simba to die. And I was sitting there going, you want some oomph behind that? Jump in, it's your son. Maybe I've seen the 94 one too much, but I'm just sitting there, I'm like, son, jump, save, hug, embrace, kill Scar, the end. Okay, the third scene I want to talk about, and this is the highlight of this, because this was the one where I said, are you fucking kidding me? Like, I said that for some strange reason, the theater that I went to go see this film in was jam-packed at 10 in the morning. I'm like, okay. Either way, I was sitting there, and I had a family next to me, like 3 or 4 little kids, and there was this little girl that was right next to me, and she was basically echoing my sentiment at the same time with this scene. I'm like, what? And in case you didn't know, in the 1994 version, I'm going to be saying that a lot, so get used to it. After Timon and Pumbaa make fun of Simba's little star thing that Mufasa had told him as a cub, and they're like, oh, what mook made that up? And Simba just gets up and walks away. He falls into a cloud of dust, and the dust flies away, and then it cuts to the dust still flying away, but it's gotten to its destination. It got to Rafiki. The wind had carried it to Rafiki's tree, and using his, I don't know, shaman monkey bullcrap, he discovers that it was Simba. That Simba was still alive, and thus could come to the Pride Lands and dethrone this guy. Hi. In this film, my God, he sort of sheds part of his mane, Simba, and it starts flying away. And you're like, okay, this is how they get to Rafiki. Then it lands in a river, and there's a bunch of bugs and other animals that are around it, and birds and all that. A bird tries to bring it to its nest. The other bird throws it out of the nest, so it lands on a tree branch, which is then eaten by a giraffe. It's eaten by a giraffe. I'm not joking here. It's eaten by a giraffe. And then it's shit out by the giraffe. Thankfully, thank you, Jon Favreau, we don't see that. But there's a dung beetle moving the hair along, because apparently hair doesn't digest in giraffes. And it's moving it along, moving it along, moving it along. And after several bugs sort of pick it up and move it along, and it gets moved out of there, Rafiki gets it. What was the point of that? I mean, for the mouse, I'll give you were showing the scenery that you got of Africa. Fine. With Mufasa not going into the gorge fast to save his son, that's unforgivable, but whatever. This was where I said, what? We're taking this long to get to... What? 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 Like when the giraffe eats the hair, it cuts the black. And I'm like, what? Oh my Lord. And you know what sucks? Those 3 scenes are the 3 most memorable scenes in this movie. I could go on a nitpick tour if I wanted. There are 2 specific scenes where both Mufasa and Zazu tell Simba, oh, just go back and play with the other cubs. So you're like, oh, so they're going to add new characters. No. So the first payoff is that Zazu takes Simba back to Pride Rock, which we see. Zazu flies off and he's like, oh, I'll go play with the other cubs. I don't recall if there were any other cubs. I think Nala was the only one that was there. And then Simba chases a beetle all the way up to where Scar is, and then Scar proceeds to, be Scar. But not this cool Scar. He was... Oh, dear God. I want to bring up his name again. The guy who trained Doctor Strange in Doctor Strange. That was the guy. He plays Scar. And, well, we'll get to the acting performances later, but long story short, yeah, there were no other cubs. That was a complete throwaway line. Not just be like, no, son, it's too dangerous. The hyenas will rip you apart. No. No, it had to be, go play with the other cubs, son. Oh, go play with the other cubs. You're like, what other cubs? Nala? I think, I get if they were thinking during the production that they went to all those fan theories about who's Nala's dad. Is it Mufasa? Because then we're promoting incest, which I don't think works the same as it does with humans, but either way, you're promoting that. Or you're promoting incest and saying, this guy was her dad. But why would you keep that line in there then? Just don't even acknowledge that the line exists. Alright, I've gone into a 21-minute rant about 3 scenes, my somewhat opinion of the film, and opinions on the other Disney remakes. I want to get to some of the positives, because there were a few. I talked about Hans Zimmer already. Even when he's lazy, Hans Zimmer did a really good job with the score. The Stampede gripped me with its score. The Battle for Pride Rock, well, it was good. It was nice. Had a lot of homages to previously used Disney scores. I will say the one that got on my nerves was, they replayed the musical score of Simba, that when he goes to see his dad's dead body. Spoilers. But if you haven't seen the movie, again, shame on you. When he goes to see Mufasa's body, they played that musical score 3 or 4 times during the film. Like, the first time when it was supposed to be played. The second time, I think, was when Simba was going through the... Apparently, he went to Agrabah because he was in a desert. That somehow leads to the gorge. I don't know. Either way, I don't know how Africa works. I'm not going to argue with that. Second time was when he was going through a desert. The third time, if I'm not mistaken, I think it was during when he was climbing up to go to look at the stars after Timon and Pumbaa basically crapped all over his hopes and dreams. And that's when the hair fell out. I didn't even want to talk about that anymore. The fourth time was after the Battle of Pride Rock, and the rain falls down and it washes away all the fire. And they played it again. I'm like, wow, you're playing that's your trump card. Like, really? But like I said, aside from that, he did a really good job scoring this film. So, again, even when Hans Zimmer is lazy, he does a good job. Second that I actually found myself really enjoying was Donald Glover as Simba. I was surprised. Like, I can't really say that any of the main characters, like, I don't mean like Kevin Kline in Beauty and the Beast was a great Maurice, much better than the original one. The original one was a kooky inventor. This one was, oh my god, I don't even want to get into that, but he did a really good job with that. But I mean, like, of all the remakes, the main characters, like Elle Fanning as Aurora, I don't even remember the guy that got to play Prince Philip. The chick that they got to play Alice, okay, I guess. The kid who played Mowgli did a pretty okay job for acting around nobody. Emma Watson as Belle. Dan Stevens as the Beast. Mina Masada, who played Aladdin. Naomi Scott as Jasmine. But in all of these films, I don't think I liked the performances either equally to or greater than the performance in the original. This one I thought was pretty on par. In fact, there were parts of his performance that were better than Matthew Broderick's. Like, Matthew Broderick could have brought a bit more of his Ferris Bueller into the Simba role, where it's just like, I don't want to do anything. He played it a little too dramatically, I'll give them that. But you know what? I love that film anyway, so it doesn't matter. This guy, oh my god, he played the bum Simba really well, where it's like, I don't want to do anything. Let's just sit around, and I'm going to frolic in the field with an antelope that's apparently in Timon and Pumbaa's jungle, and they're like, yeah, dude, they're never going to want to frolic with a predator. It's like, okay. Wow, that did not turn out well. I really liked his performance as Simba. Like, I'm serious. He did a pretty darn good job. Compared to Matthew Broderick. Bad performances? The good news is, a lot of the performances in the movie are okay. John Oliver as Zazu, okay. The guy that got to be Rafiki, okay. The hyenas, fine. Timon and Pumbaa, fine. Scar had a lot of hit and miss moments. Not close to the Jeremy Irons bundle of sexiness that he is. Good boy, Scar. But the Golden Raspberries Award for the 2 worst performances in the movie have to go to first Beyonce, who I think everyone saw coming. God bless the woman for her ability to sing, because she can't act worth a damn. This was literally Beyonce saying lines in a movie. This wasn't like, look, I'm not the biggest fan of Nala to begin with, but this wasn't a character. This was just this was just Beyonce reading fortune cookies to Simba and being like, you have to take your place as king. Like, really? 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 She was bad. James Earl Jones, man. He had it in moments, but then he lost it in moments. I think the perfect example is, there's a video on YouTube right now of the comparisons of the Scar killing Mufasa, and like in the original, it's Mufasa. Scar throws Mufasa back into the gorge, and there's a big dramatic musical sting, and then like you literally feel like this is a guy who is about to die, and Simba's like heartbreaking scream there that Jonathan Taylor Thomas did really well, and then. In the remake, it's like James Earl Jones when he gets thrown back into the gorge. It's like, ah! Like, oh no, someone took my Netflix password. Ah! And then someone pointed it out in the comments. It was like Mufasa's like, someone took my Netflix password, and the kid that got to play Simba, who did a pretty good job up until then, was like, no, no. 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 If there's one word I can describe this movie as, it's soulless. Beautiful, but soulless. Oh, my Lord. There are literally so many things I need to talk about this movie while it's still in my brain, because I'm willing to bet that, I don't remember a damn thing about the original, about the 2015 Cinderella. I just remember, that didn't suck. Cool. I think that's what I'm going to remember about this film. I'm going to be like, oh, cool. It didn't suck. I'm not going to go out of my way to see it. I will go out of my way to watch Aladdin, because that one is so awful that it's like, I'm enjoying myself. It's beautifully awful. Beauty and the Beast, I can't do that with, because that's just, ugh. Ugh. But this film, I'm afraid, is gonna basically vanish right there. Like, it'll win opening weekend for sure. Like, there were lines literally out of the movie theater that I was going to go see Lion King. All the other ones are like, Toy Story's in theaters. No. Oh, well, this is a no. We're all here to see Lion King, damn it. Scar, I will never disappoint you. You are a good lion. I'm proud of you. your movie is still infinitely times better than the remake I just saw. And it ain't getting much better, folks. Mulan doesn't look particularly appetizing. The second Maleficent, oh dear lord, there were trailers for both before the movie. Honestly, the only trailer for any of the movies that were there before the movie start that I found was even remotely interesting was there was a weird trailer about an Indian family, and I don't mean like Native American, I mean from India, Indian, whatever. Subcontinent, not North American, either way. A family that their son sort of falls into the Bruce Springsteen thing, and it's based on the music of Bruce Springsteen. I'm like, yeah, that's going to be an Oscar bait film, but you know what? All the other films that they were showing trailers for, I don't remember any of them. There was one about dogs, I think, like something like the Arctic or something. It reminded me of Norm of the North. I don't want to think about that movie ever again. There was an Addams Family one, which is probably being made by the same bums who made it Despicable Me. And then there were the two for Maleficent and Mulan. They don't look good, guys. But you know what the problem is? If they're both genuinely awful, they will be more memorable than this film was. Now, you don't have to see this movie. Do not feel like you have to. I'm not telling you to. I've seen it for all of you. But if you want to see it, go in with literally no expectations. Because this film, I can basically describe in 3 words. Beautiful, but soulless.